Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. The Second Funeral. The flag on the coffin wasn't folded right. Nolan Briggs noticed that first. From the trees behind the churchyard, he watched them gather. Neighbors, soldiers, old friends, and her, Rhea, in a black dress that hugged her too tight, standing too close to her brother, Silas. The priest read Nolan's name like a stranger. Corporal Nolan Briggs, a hero who gave his life in service, but Nolan wasn't dead. He stood 20 yards away, alive and breathing, hands clenched in the shadows. His body bore the proof: scars from Helmand Province, 3 surgeries, a torn shoulder from the blast. The military paperwork said presumed Kia. His orders had been altered. Someone had signed a death confirmation he never authorized. And now, they were burying an empty casket. He hadn't told anyone he made it back. Not yet. Not until he saw it with his own eyes. And there it was. Rhea leaning into Silas like a grieving widow who needed a strong arm. Except her fingers weren't just gripping his. They were brushing his palm like a signal. A secret language. Like they'd practiced it. Nolan's pulse thumped in his ears. He stepped back, hidden by the pines, heart racing. He should have felt angry. Or hurt. But what settled in his chest was colder. Purpose. When the crowd dispersed, Rhea and Silas walked to her car. She laughed. Actually laughed. Silas leaned in and kissed her cheek, too close to the mouth. And no one looked twice. How long has it been going on? Nolan whispered to himself. Since before I left. He pulled out a small recorder. Clicked it on. Time to gather proof. He didn't die in war. But someone back home clearly wanted him gone. Why? Hey everyone. We've just hit 3,000 subscribers on Midnight Affairs Tales, and I couldn't be more grateful for your love and support. Your passion for deep, emotional, and shocking stories has helped build something truly special here. Now, I've quietly started a new channel. It's called Betrayal Stories Lab. It's a place where I'll share even more powerful stories, full of betrayal, unexpected twists, and unforgettable endings. If you've enjoyed the journey so far, I'd love for you to check it out and be part of this new beginning. Channel link is in the description. Just one click, and you're there. Let's grow this new space together. Our first goal is 1,000 subscribers. And if any story touches you, don't forget to share it. Thank you for always being here. The motel smelled like bleach and loneliness. Nolan dropped his go bag by the door and sat on the edge of the bed, his body aching in familiar places. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Afghanistan, Germany, then stateside. No welcome, no fanfare, just a lie with a tombstone. He opened the laptop, slid in a small flash drive. Footage loaded, grainy camcorder video from the churchyard. He slowed the playback and watched Rhea's movements. Her body language told him more than words ever could. The way she leaned into Silas. The look they shared at the gravesite. It wasn't grief. It was ownership. Nolan typed out a list on the notepad. Silas. Track movements. Rhea. Confirm second phone check will plus benefits filed fake death report equals inside job. He shut the laptop and grabbed the small duffel by the dresser. Inside, burner phone, a loaded Glock, cash from his emergency fund, and a set of fake IDs he hoped he'd never use. The mirror above the sink showed a stranger. Hollow eyes. Hair too long. Skin paler than it should have been. But behind all that resolve, he was back from the dead. And they didn't even flinch. All right, sweetheart, he muttered, strapping the gun to his side. Let's see what else you buried. 2 hours later, he was parked 3 houses down from their place. Rhea's car was in the driveway. So was Silas' truck. Engine still warm. He watched the lights inside. They moved from room to room. Then, music. Low, slow jazz. A laugh. A woman's voice. Rhea's voice. Soft and suggestive. He stared at the window. His window. She never played jazz when he was home. Maybe they think I'm still 6 feet under, he whispered. He smiled, just slightly. Let's keep it that way. Nolan broke in during their morning gym run. He knew Rhea's habits. She was routine to the bone. Wake up, protein shake, yoga pants, gym. Always between 7:30 and 9 o'clock. Perfect. The back door still had the same lock he'd installed 3 years ago. He didn't even need to break it, just a bump key and quiet hands. Inside, the house felt unfamiliar. Cold, spotless, like a model home. No trace of him anywhere. Family photos had been changed. One in the hallway showed Rhea and Silas at a beach, laughing. Silas shirtless, arms around her waist. She'd never posted that one. Nolan headed to the basement, his old office. A half-finished man cave turned storage dump. That's where he planted the camera. High in the vent, wired into motion detect recording. Another near the bed. One on the porch. All connected to a secure cloud server under a fake account. He left with nothing touched, not even a fingerprint. That night, he watched the footage from the motel. Around 10:12 p.m., motion triggered the basement feed. Rhea entered, phone to her ear. "Yeah, baby. I miss you too." Pause. "No, I told you he's gone. The papers say so. Nobody's looking." Another pause. "You think I don't feel sick? He trusted me." Laughter. "Well, he should have picked a smarter wife." Nolan sat frozen. Not just from the betrayal, but the ease in her voice. No guilt. No hesitation. Then a man's voice joined hers. "Silas." He came in behind her. Kissed her neck. "I transferred the last of it to the Cayman account," Silas said. "How much?" she asked. "Almost 400K. Our new life starts now." Nolan leaned forward, jaw clenched. She didn't just cheat. She robbed him, buried him, replaced him, and smiled doing it. The next stop wasn't a bar, a back alley, or a confrontation. It was a laptop, a black coffee, and a digital background check Nolan pulled from an old contact in Army Intel. Silas K. Huxley. Born, Jackson County, Alabama. No known spouse. No kids. 1 DUI. 2 sealed juvenile records. An expunged assault charge from 2011. Former construction foreman, fired twice for misappropriation of company funds. No W-2s filed in over 2 years. No job currently listed. But that wasn't the part that made Nolan stop scrolling. A birth certificate. Father, Douglas Huxley. Mother, Margaret Reeves. Rhea's mother. Half-brother, Nolan muttered. "You lying, incestuous." He pushed away from the desk and paced. The motel walls felt like they were shrinking. His breathing shortened. His fingers twitched. They weren't just having an affair. They were blood. He picked up his burner, dialed his former CO. A gruff voice answered. "Briggs? Jesus, I thought you were." "I know. I need a favor." "Say it." "I need to know who filed the Kia paperwork. The one that went up the chain when I got injured in Helmand. Somebody fast-tracked it." A pause. That should have come from admin in Kabul. Only MedOps or family can initiate that. Family. It hit him in the gut like a punch. Back at the motel, Nolan pulled up Rhea's emails from the backup software he'd secretly synced years ago. She thought she deleted everything. But digital ghosts didn't die easy. An email. Subject: Urgent status update for Nolan Briggs. Forwarded to silas.huxley@pmvault.org. Attachment: Kia confirmation request. And signed, she'd sent it. He had proof. They tried to erase him. Legally. Financially. Physically, if they could have. Nolan didn't know yet how deep this went. But one thing was certain, they needed him dead to get something much bigger. And he wasn't staying dead anymore. Nolan had always believed that the truth left fingerprints, even digital ones. You just had to know where to dust. He sat in the back booth of a 24-hour diner off I-90, his eyes fixed on the phone in front of him. It was Rhea's old Galaxy S8, the one she'd kept hidden in the garage tool chest, tucked inside a hollowed-out drill case. He'd pulled it during his second break-in, left no sign it was gone. He powered it on. No password. She hadn't even tried to lock it. The message threads loaded like a punch to the ribs. "Silas, you sure the money cleared?" "Rhea, Briggs is off the grid. If they try to find him, the papers say he's gone. We're clean." "Silas, you better be right." "Rhea, we're halfway to the Caymans already, babe." Nolan scrolled. Weeks of messages. Conversations dripping with venom, lust, and greed. But what stuck with him was a photo, a screen capture of his military death certificate. It had been submitted digitally from her IP address. The final thread caught his attention. "Silas, did you handle the insurance guy?" "Rhea, he's taking a cut. 30K, but he's wiping the backup checks and rerouting the funds. Silas, perfect. Now we just need Briggs' ID to finalize the title transfer. Rhea, already signed. In his name. He'll never know. Ever. They'd used his ID. Forged his signature. Sold his property. They weren't just cheating. They were erasing him. Stealing not just his dignity, but his name. His hand shook on the phone. Not from fear. From clarity. They didn't just cheat. They built an empire on the assumption he'd never come back. And now he had their blueprint. Everything. Nolan stared across the desk at a man named Dorian Kemp, a white-collar defense attorney who owed him a favor. Years ago, Nolan had pulled Kemp's son from a burning vehicle on base. Now, the lawyer leaned back in his leather chair, eyebrows raised. You're telling me someone's been committing identity fraud in your name while you were deployed? While I was bleeding out in a field hospital in Germany, yeah, Nolan said. Kemp tapped his pen, thoughtful. You have proof. Nolan handed over the burner phone, printed bank statements, fake business filings with his forged signature, and the death certificate Rhea submitted. Jesus Christ, Kemp muttered. Nolan nodded. They set up a shell company using my military credentials. Claimed it was a veteran-run construction firm. Got a federal startup grant. Bought land. Took out loans. All under my social. Then they filed me dead so the lenders couldn't verify. Kemp exhaled. How much are we talking? Close to 400,000. And climbing. And this Silas guy? He's not your legal family. Just her half-brother? By blood, not by law. Kemp looked up. We could file a civil suit today. Fraud. Forgery. Misuse of government funds. But I'm guessing you're not here just for legal action. Nolan's silence was answer enough. You want to ruin them. I want to make sure no one ever trusts them again. I want them exposed. But legally. Loudly. And permanently. Kemp nodded. Then I'll make some calls. As Nolan left the office, a text buzzed his burner. Unknown number. You should have stayed dead. He smiled. They knew now. And that meant the hunt had begun. The VFW hall was mostly empty, aside from the click of pool balls and the low murmur of war stories fading into smoke. Nolan sat at the end of the bar in a battered leather jacket, the kind that spoke of miles walked and trust broken. His dog tags dangled just under his collar. Briggs, a voice rasped behind him. Nolan turned. A wiry man in his 50s limped over, boots scuffed, eyes sharp. Sergeant Leo Stitch Mathers, an old squad mate with more steel in him than sympathy. I thought you were in the ground. Not yet. Stitch sat, nodded to the bartender for 2 whiskeys. What the hell's going on? They filed me dead. Stole everything. My wife and her half-brother. He's running some scam using my ID. Silas. You know him. Worked drywall for a buddy of mine. Got fired for siphoning payroll. Always gave me the creeps. Nolan slid a folder across the table. They used my military status to secure contracts and loans. Government money. Fake vet programs. Stitch flipped through the papers, whistled low. This ain't just betrayal, man. This is treason with a side of incest. Nolan cracked a grim smile. I need eyes. Discreet ones. People I can trust. Stitch leaned in, voice low. You didn't crawl out of hell just to get angry. You came back to end them. Legally. Loudly. Permanently. Stitch nodded once. I got a guy. Used to work logistics at City Hall. Knows when something stinks. I'll make a call. The bartender poured the whiskeys. They clinked glasses in silence. Outside, Nolan lit a cigarette he didn't want. Watched it burn. The smoke curling like a fuse slowly catching. They knew he was alive. Now, he knew he wasn't alone. Millridge wasn't the kind of town that made headlines. It was the kind where secrets were currency and silence was a civic duty. Nolan walked its cracked sidewalks, hood up, beard grown just enough to blur the face people thought they remembered from folded flags and funeral programs. He stopped outside a barber shop, his old spot. Inside, Chuck Willis, the barber for half the town's men. Chuck looked up, froze mid-trim. Nolan. Yeah. Back from the dead. Chuck stepped outside, closed the door behind him. Jesus Christ. They said, I know what they said. Question is, what did you see? Chuck rubbed the back of his neck, looked away. Nothing I can prove. You saw Silas. With Rhea? You cut his damn hair last week. Chuck sighed. Look, people talked. quietly. But we thought you were gone. You'd been MIA 6 months. And that makes it okay to let him take over my life? I didn't know the details, Nolan. Nobody did. They moved in quiet. She played the grieving widow. He played the protector. You weren't here to say otherwise. Nolan leaned in. What if I told you they were laundering stolen military funds and impersonating a dead Marine to get rich? Chuck blinked. I'd say the whole damn town's complicit. Not if we make it right, Nolan said. I need names. People who helped them sell that lie. And I need them now. Chuck hesitated, then nodded. There's a guy. Local sheriff's nephew. Handles permits and property transfers. He fast-tracked Silas' business approval. Name's Trevor Lang. Nolan stepped back. Thanks, Chuck. Briggs, Chuck called after him. Whatever you're planning, don't get yourself buried for real this time. Nolan didn't answer. The town buried him once. This time, he'd do the digging. Trevor Lang's office reeked of cheap cologne and printer toner. He looked up from his desk with a smirk, spinning a pen between his fingers like he'd been waiting to be challenged. Well, if it isn't the ghost of Corporal Briggs. Nolan shut the door behind him. Glad to know my death certificate made it to your inbox. Lang leaned back in his chair, didn't blink. What do you want? Every file you pushed through for Silas Huxley in the last 12 months. Lang scoffed. You got a warrant? I've got leverage. Nolan slid a flash drive across the desk. On that drive, screenshots, texts, emails, documents with your name all over property fraud, forgery, and grant manipulation. Lang's smile dropped. Funny thing, Nolan continued. Your signature shows up on 2 VA approval letters. One was filed the same day I was declared dead. Lang's mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. You're going down with him unless you help me nail him to the wall. Lang swallowed. I didn't know he was using your name. You didn't ask. Because the money was clean enough not to smell. Nolan leaned forward. You want to stay out of federal prison? You'll pull everything. Today. Quietly. And send it to a secure inbox I'll give you. Lang nodded, shaky now. Okay. Yeah. You'll have it. Nolan stood, eyes locked. And Trevor. Yeah. If one page is missing, I'll come back. And next time, it won't be quiet. As he stepped out into the hallway, Nolan's phone buzzed. Message from Stitch, warehouse on Route 9. Found something you'll want to see. No cops. Nolan's jaw tightened. The noose was tightening, and he was the one pulling it. The warehouse sat behind a rusted chain-link fence, half swallowed by weeds. A sign barely clung to its post. Merrick Supply Company, closed. Nolan parked in the shadows across the road. The GPS tracker he'd planted under Silas' truck had pinged this location 3 times in the past week. Stitch stood by the side door, holding a crowbar. You're sure no one's inside? Nolan asked. Stitch nodded. Place is dead after 6 p.m. Cameras are cut. No alarms. And you're gonna want to see what's in there. The metal groaned as they slipped inside. The air was thick. Dust, oil, and the faint stench of something chemical. Industrial shelving lined the walls. At first glance, it looked like a forgotten depot. Then they found the back room. Stitch flipped the light. Inside were 5 steel filing cabinets, a desk covered in manila folders, and 2 laptops. This is it? Nolan asked. No. That's the appetizer. Stitch walked to a hidden panel under the back desk, popped it loose, and pulled out a sealed duffel bag. Inside, burner phones, stacks of prepaid credit cards, a notebook with lists, dozens of names, partial social security numbers, veteran ID numbers. Nolan stared. They weren't just scamming me. Looks like Silas was harvesting info off military databases. Probably sold on the dark web or used to set up fake orgs. Nolan flipped open one folder. A nonprofit application under Patriot Build Foundation. His name was listed as the founder. A signature that wasn't his stared back. They were building an empire, Nolan muttered. Stitch pointed to one phone. Still active. Text came in 5 minutes ago. Nolan picked it up. The message read, transfer the new funds by midnight or it's all coming down. A new player. He wasn't just dealing with betrayal. This was organized. Nolan sat in his motel room, documents spread across the floor like a crime scene. He read line after line of forged contracts, grant approvals, and wire transfers routed through offshore accounts. The Patriot Build Foundation wasn't just a shell. It was a full-blown fraud operation with Nolan listed as the face of honor and integrity. He clicked open the laptop Stitch had grabbed. No password. The desktop background was a photo of Silas and Rhea, laughing at a beach, holding champagne. It was dated 3 weeks after Nolan was declared dead. He opened the folders. One was titled Grant Pipeline, Phase 2. Inside were proposals awaiting submission, requests for over $750,000 in federal veteran support funding. And all of them bore Nolan's digital signature. They were going for $1 million payday, he muttered. He clicked on a video file labeled Fundraiser Pitch Draft. It opened with Rhea on screen, speaking softly, eyes tearful. When I lost my husband, I thought I'd never recover. But I turned my grief into action. Photos of Nolan flashed across the screen. Uniformed, smiling, unaware he'd be used in a campaign that was never real. Nolan paused the video, fingers tightening around the mouse. They had weaponized his service, turned his story into currency, and the world had bought it. He opened a new email. Subject line, military fraud, urgent tip. He attached documents, clips, bank records, everything. Sent it to federal investigators, the state attorney general's office, and a retired Marine journalist known for exposing corruption. One by one, he sent the fuse down the wire. Then he sat back, staring at the screen, and whispered, "You wanted a war, Silas? You picked the wrong ghost." For the next 3 days, Nolan went dark. No calls, no texts, no movement. He stayed inside a rental cabin up in Bridgers Pass, surrounded by nothing but snow, pine, and a rifle by the window. Silence wasn't easy, but it was necessary. He needed to listen. Let the world make its first move. And it did. On day 2, Rhea's face appeared on a local TV station. She stood outside a community center, holding a cardboard check for $50,000 made out to Veterans Children Fund. Cameras flashed. She smiled. Nolan watched from the dark cabin. That's blood money. The anchor praised her work, called her a resilient widow. She looked poised, warm, untouchable, until the screen cut to breaking news: federal auditors investigating fraudulent veteran programs in the state. A linked nonprofit, Patriot Build Foundation, was named. The smile on Rhea's face faltered on screen. She didn't know yet, but the cracks had started. That evening, Nolan received a burner text from an anonymous number. "Did you do this?" They're panicking. He didn't reply. Instead, he pulled a worn notebook from his jacket. Inside was a short list for names, each connected to Silas, each tied to documents, each dirty. Trevor Lang had already caved. Now it was time for the rest. But this part? This had to stay cold, precise, legal. No screaming matches, no guns drawn, just silence and truth loud enough to destroy them. He looked out at the snow, falling like ashes. Let them think the ghost had vanished again. Because when he returned, it wouldn't be as a husband. It would be as a reckoning. She was taller now. Nolan watched from across the schoolyard fence as Harper, his daughter, ran the track and gym class, ponytail bouncing behind her. 9 years old. Bright. Fast. He hadn't seen her in nearly 10 months. Not since he kissed her goodbye at the airport. Not since Rhea told her daddy was doing hero work overseas. And not since Rhea told the world he wasn't coming back. He didn't cry. Not here. Not now. But his grip on the fence tightened, metal biting into his palm. "Hey," a voice said. He turned. The school janitor, a Vietnam vet with a prosthetic leg and a face like cracked leather, looked him over. "You family?" the old man asked. Nolan nodded. "Her father. Jesus. You're the one they said died." "I got better." The janitor grunted. "She talks about you, you know. Draws pictures. Told one of the teachers you were coming back someday." Nolan's throat tightened. "She say that recently?" "Last week." He looked back at Harper. She was helping a classmate who'd fallen, holding out a hand. Smiling. Kind. Like her dad. A car pulled up on the far side of the lot. Rhea stepped out, sunglasses on, phone in hand. Talking. Always performing. Silas wasn't with her. Nolan stepped back behind the tree line. Not yet. He'd seen enough for today. He had to be smart. Careful. Not for himself. For Harper. Because when this war ended, he wasn't just taking back his name or money, he was taking back his daughter. Are you absolutely sure you want to pursue custody and criminal charges simultaneously? Kemp asked, eyes narrowed over his glasses. Nolan sat across from him in a quiet conference room, a stack of sealed evidence folders between them. I want everything done by the book, Nolan said. No shortcuts. No loopholes. I want her exposed publicly and legally. Kemp opened one folder. Inside, signed false affidavits, forged notary stamps, and a financial record showing Rhea had accepted military widow benefits she wasn't entitled to. These alone could put her away for 5 to 10, Kemp muttered. She won't do a day if we don't stack everything first. Fraud, conspiracy, custody interference, theft of benefits, emotional trauma to a minor. Kemp looked up. You're not doing this out of spite, are you? I'm doing it because my daughter's being raised by someone who tried to erase me. Kemp nodded slowly, then slid a new document across the table. Emergency injunction. If the judge signs off, you get temporary contact rights. Supervised at first, but it's a start. Nolan signed it without hesitation. And this one? Kemp asked. The second form was heavier. A formal declaration to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, accusing Rhea of coordinated benefit fraud and requesting a freeze of all disbursements tied to her. Nolan signed that too. She won't see this coming, Kemp said. No, Nolan replied, standing. She's too busy playing the perfect widow. As he left the office, he felt the shift, subtle, but real. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was reclamation. The safe house was nothing special, just a converted trailer on an old hunter's property outside Bozeman. Inside, Nolan laid everything out on a folding table. 3 laptops, 6 label drives, for printed binders, 2 burner phones synced to encrypted networks, a war table, paper and digital landmines. Stitch entered with a box of records under his arm. This is everything from the warehouse. Grant drafts, ID scans, even Silas burner texts. Nolan flipped one open, reading aloud. We'll wait until the audit clears, then cash out and ghost. Think they know you're behind it yet? They're suspicious, but not sure. They'll guess soon. Stitch opened a small wooden box, dog tags. Nolan's. Pulled from storage. You ready to use your real name again? Not yet. Nolan slid a hard drive into one of the laptops. On screen, every financial movement Silas and Rhea made in the last 14 months. Offshore transfers, LLC filings, emails confirming backdoor donations from shady PACs and shell companies. All of it tied back to one common node, Patriot Build Foundation. Everything's in here, Nolan said. The fraud, the affair, the laundering. Even a document showing Rhea filed a life insurance claim with a forged DoD signature. He copied the full folder onto a new drive, labeled it in Sharpie. Truth_01. Stitch looked at him. What now? Nolan zipped the bag shut. Now we give them enough rope. And then he'd be the one holding the end of it. Nolan hadn't planned to step into the light. But sometimes the light comes looking for you. Her name was Rowan Cash. Former war correspondent turned freelance investigative journalist. Her voicemail had hit his burner that morning. Mr. Briggs, if you're who I think you are, then I know what your wife did. I've been following the Patriot Build fraud case for 6 months. Something's rotten here, and I think you're the key. He didn't answer the first time, or the second. But by 8 p.m., he was sitting across from her in a small booth at a truck stop diner just outside of Helena, cap low, jacket zipped, a black coffee steaming in front of him. Rowan had sharp eyes and a worn leather notebook already open on the table. No recorder. No camera. I'm off the clock, she said. Bullshit, he replied. She smiled. Fine. I'm always on the clock. But you called me. He stared at her a long beat. Why you? Why this story? She tapped her pen on the notebook. Because no one else has the guts to take down a fake patriot charity that's scamming wounded veterans. Because most reporters want feel-good flag-waving fluff. I want justice. He handed her a flash drive. That's phase 1. Emails. Bank trails. Shell companies. All built using my ID. I need it in the media, clean, credible, viral. Rowan glanced at it. You know this'll blow open fast, right? Once I run with it, there's no hiding. I'm done hiding. And your wife. Nolan's jaw flexed. Let her watch it fall apart piece by piece. Rowan's smile dropped. One question. Go ahead. Why not just disappear and start over? Nolan's voice was quiet, razor sharp. Because she buried me. Now I get to dig her out. The house was tucked on a forgotten stretch of highway, past 2 dead gas stations and a burned-out trailer. Margaret Reeves hadn't changed much since Nolan last saw her. Hair dyed red to mask the gray, thin face, chain-smoking Virginia Slims with the same bitterness she wore like perfume. You've got balls showing up here, she said, leaning on the doorframe. I'm not here for tea. Then say what you came to say. Your son's running a fraud operation with your daughter. They tried to kill me on paper, maybe for real. And I want to know how deep it goes. She didn't blink, just flicked ash into a chipped cup. You think I knew about this? I think you know exactly what kind of man you raised. And I think you've been looking the other way since he was a kid. Margaret sighed, turned, and walked back inside without inviting him. He followed anyway. I knew Silas was trouble, she said finally. Didn't matter how much I prayed or punished him. He liked control. He liked getting what he didn't earn. And Rhea, she poured whiskey into a plastic cup. Always wanted to be saved. Never mattered by who. So they save each other now, Nolan muttered. Margaret sat on the couch, lit another cigarette. You want dirt? Fine. Silas has a storage unit in Belgrade, under the name Seth Klein. Used it when he was running scams before Rhea ever got involved. What kind of scams? Insurance fraud. ID swaps. He learned it in juvie. He's just scaling up now with your name on the banner. Nolan stood. You ever warn her? Margaret looked at him, for once without sarcasm. I warned her the day she said I do. The storage unit in Belgrade was colder than the outside air, the fluorescent light flickering like it regretted being turned on. Nolan scanned the contents. Bins of documents, old electronics, one metal locker sealed with a fingerprint pad. He didn't have the code, but he didn't need it. Behind him, a voice. Looking for something? Nolan turned. The woman had dark hair, a scar under her left eye, and boots that looked military issue. She held a duffel bag in one hand. No fear in her posture. You're not with him? Nolan said. Hell no. She stepped forward, dropped the bag at his feet. It hit with a heavy metallic thud. I'm Cass, she said, and I've been looking for Silas longer than you have. He stared. You knew him? Knew him, lived with him, almost married him. Until I found out what he was. Cass opened the duffel. Inside were burner phones, external drives, and a USB stick wrapped in masking tape labeled insurance. He used me, she said. Said he needed help filing paperwork for his veteran partner. Turns out that was you. Your name. Your records. I thought I was building something legit. Nolan picked up one phone, flipped through the messages. One showed a transaction of $30,000 wired from an unknown donor to Patriot Build. Another? A photo of Rhea and Silas. In bed. Cass knelt beside the locker, placed her thumb on the pad. It opened with a hiss. Inside was a folder marked Exit Plan. Fake IDs. Passports. Plane tickets. He was planning to vanish, she said. With Rhea? Nolan asked. Cass shook her head. Nah. With someone richer. You were never the final mark. Nolan stared at the documents, then at Cass. How far are you willing to go? She grinned. As far as you need. Cass poured coffee into 2 chipped mugs inside the cabin, steam rising between them like smoke signals. Nolan studied her movements, calculated, efficient. She was ex-military too. He could tell by the way she scanned windows without turning her head. How long were you with him? Nolan asked. 6 months, give or take, she said. Long enough to know he had 3 phones and lied in fluent manipulation. Nolan sipped. Why didn't you go to the cops? Because I didn't have proof. Just suspicion. Until now. She slid over a file from the locker, signed donor forms, payments, and emails where Silas bragged about Patriot optics and manipulating grief narratives. Nolan scanned it. This gets the media's attention. That's the point. Cass leaned forward. I say we leak it first. Public shaming makes him panic. We force him to scramble. When he slips, we bury him in evidence. And Rhea? Cass paused. You want to protect her? No. I want her held accountable. But I need to keep Harper out of the blast zone. Cass nodded, understanding. We can isolate the blow. Hit Silas first. Once his world starts falling apart, she'll panic. People make mistakes under pressure. Nolan looked at the USB labeled insurance. Let's make sure the next mistake she makes ends everything. They clinked coffee mugs, like soldiers sealing a pact. In that quiet cabin, two of Silas' burned bridges were now allies. And they were loading the gun he'd built himself. The receptionist at the West Ridge Wellness Center looked up from her desk, startled to see Nolan walk in. I'm here to see Dr. Miriam Flagg, he said. Do you have an appointment? No, but she'll want to hear this. 10 minutes later, he sat in a neutral-toned office, across from a woman in her 50s with silver hair, a calm voice, and a license framed on the wall. You're Nolan Briggs? She asked, startled. Alive and in the flesh. I'm here because I know you treated my wife. Dr. Flagg set her tablet down slowly. She said you died. She lied. And she used that lie to paint a picture: PTSD, paranoia, domestic control. I've seen the notes. Miriam's face tightened. That information's confidential. I'm not asking for her files. I'm telling you she used your sessions to justify a cover-up. She leaned back, quiet. She told you I was violent, didn't she? Dr. Flagg didn't respond. That I yelled. Broke things. That I had nightmares. All true, but none of it ever turned on her. And I never hurt her. Not once. Still no response. But her eyes showed understanding now. Doubt. You vouched for her in a custody recommendation, Nolan said. I saw the paperwork. Your signature helped her get sole guardianship. Dr. Flagg slowly exhaled. She never mentioned Silas. Only grief. She played the part well. She played us all. He slid a printed copy of Ria's life insurance claim across the table. Filed while I was still breathing. Alongside a request for emergency funds from your therapy center's veteran grief grant. Dr. Flagg looked at the document and visibly paled. I'm not asking you to break ethics. I'm asking you to tell the truth when the subpoenas start flying. She nodded, finally. You have my word. The morning broadcast lit up every TV in Montana. Veterans Foundation fraud. Local hero's name used in scam. Nolan sat in the cabin, coffee in hand, as Rowan Cash's voice narrated a slow-motion car crash of Ria's carefully constructed image. The screen showed his military portrait next to her staged fundraiser photos. Used the name and background of presumed dead Marine Nolan Briggs to file false nonprofit applications, solicit donor funds, and obtain government grants totaling over $900,000. The evidence was laid bare: wire transfers, audio clips, copies of forged IDs, and the glowing article from months ago praising Ria's strength and service. They didn't just tell the truth, they detonated it. By noon, hashtags trended. Hashtag Ghost Marine, hashtag Patriot Fraud, hashtag Justice for Briggs. Stitch texted. Phones ringing off the hook. VA's on fire. FBI just called me for a statement. Cass forwarded a screenshot. Silas' lawyer had resigned. His offshore accounts were frozen. One of his shell companies was seized before breakfast. At 4:22 p.m., Rowan sent Nolan a simple message. It's begun. And for the first time in months, Nolan let himself breathe. But it wasn't over. That night, he opened his email. A new message had arrived. No subject, no signature. Inside was just one line. She knows it's you. And she's running scared. He closed the laptop slowly. Let her run. There was nowhere left to hide. Nolan stepped into the restaurant like a ghost with a purpose. It was the same place where he and Ria had celebrated their second anniversary. Polished wood floors, fake candles on every table, and a grand piano in the corner that no one ever played right. Tonight, Ria sat at the center table. Black dress, wine glass half full, eyes scanning the room nervously. No Silas. Just her. He walked in slow. No disguise. No hat. No hoodie. No shadows. People looked. Whispers followed. As he approached the table, Ria's face drained. She blinked like she was seeing a hallucination. Nolan. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. He sat down across from her. You look good, he said, cool and level. Better than a widow should. She reached for her phone, but he put a small flash drive on the table. Don't, he said. Just listen. I thought, she started. Dead? Yeah, you tried hard enough. Tears welled in her eyes, but he wasn't moved. Not anymore. I've already spoken to federal investigators, he continued. Rowan Cash ran the story this morning. Your nonprofit's assets are frozen. Your name is everywhere. Nolan, I didn't. You signed the forms. You filed the paperwork. You smiled while doing it. Her hands trembled now. You don't understand. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did. Because you chose him. Her face twisted. Silas lied to me. No, Nolan said. You lied to yourself. I was the one you buried, but I never stayed down. He stood slowly, slid the flash drive closer. Everything that's coming for you now? I didn't send it. You did. You just used my name to do it. He walked away without turning back. Let her sit in the lie she'd written like a script. And the curtain had just dropped. Nolan stood on the edge of the overlook just outside town, wind pulling at his jacket. Cass stood beside him, phone in hand, eyes wide. You need to see this, she said. She played the voicemail on speaker. Ria's voice came through, distorted by fear, but unmistakably her. I didn't forge the Kia papers. I swear to God, I didn't. It was him. Silas. He told me you were dead, sent me a video of the blast, said your body was unrecoverable. Nolan's stomach dropped. Cass stopped the audio. That's a hell of a lie to live with. She said he forged the papers without her knowing? Nolan asked, skeptical. There's more. Cass pulled up a video file. Surveillance footage. Dated months before the official death declaration. Silas was in an office, his face caught clear as day, handing off a file to a man behind a desk. The timestamp read, 3 days before Nolan's medical evacuation was recorded. Silas knew Nolan was alive. He just didn't tell anyone. And then he forged the papers, convinced Ria, and started the scheme. He played both of you, Cass said. He wanted your death real enough to get paid, but fake enough to control. Ria had been complicit, but not from the beginning. She'd been groomed, gaslit, drawn in. Nolan stared into the trees, jaw locked. He was planning her death next, Cass said. Bet on it. Once the money cleared. Nolan's breath fogged in the air. I've been hunting the wrong wolf. No, Cass said. You've been hunting the right one. But the pack's bigger than we thought. For the first time, Nolan saw it clearly. Silas wasn't just a parasite. He was a killer in waiting. And Ria? She might have been the next name on the headstone. Ria sat on the motel bed, hands wrapped tight around a cup of vending machine coffee she hadn't touched. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from waking up. Cass paced near the door. I still don't trust her. I don't either, Nolan said. But I don't need to trust her. I just need her to be scared enough to talk. Ria looked up. You have no idea what he's capable of. He told me you were dead, Nolan. He gave me details only someone from the military could know. Because he paid someone inside, Nolan said. We traced it. A contractor took money to file the death certificate ahead of schedule. Ria swallowed hard. He said the body was unrecoverable. Burned. He had photos. Deep fake images. Easy enough when you have clearance and black market AI tools. He faked your grief. Fed it to you. And you went along. I thought I had no choice. You always had a choice, Nolan snapped. You just picked the wrong damn one. Ria didn't answer. Cass tossed a manila folder on the bed. We have your banking records. Your travel logs. Your name on all the charity paperwork. You were in deep. Now you're drowning. Ria stared at it. What do you want from me? Leverage, Nolan said. Everything you know. Every name Silas ever mentioned. Every account. Every person he paid or blackmailed. And if I don't, Nolan's voice turned cold. Then you go down as the widow who buried a living man and cashed in. She looked at both of them, then slowly nodded. I'll talk. Nolan stood. Good. Because the storm's coming. And this time, he wasn't dodging it. He was walking straight through it, leading the charge. The cabin in the Bridger Mountains was silent except for the occasional crackle of wood in the fireplace. Ria sat by the window, her eyes fixed on the tree line like something might come out of it. Cass paced behind her, watching every twitch like she expected betrayal to jump from her skin. She's not gonna run, Nolan said, leaning against the kitchen counter. She ran before, Cass shot back. She didn't have Silas aiming for her back last time. Ria turned. He'll come for me. Good, Nolan said. That's what we want. She blinked. Excuse me. We leaked just enough to make him paranoid. Make him think you flipped. He won't trust you. He'll either run or try to shut you up. And you'll be there waiting, Rhea said flatly. Nolan nodded. Exactly. Cass laid a burner phone on the table. This is your contact line. One call only. If Silas reaches out, you let it ring twice and hang up. Then we trace. Rhea picked it up hesitantly. You're using me as bait. You used me as a dead man, Nolan said. Call it even. Outside, the snow had started again. Light, but steady. The kind that covered tracks and made sure no one saw the wolves coming. Rhea turned back to the window. If he finds me first, he won't, Nolan said. Because this time, the game's ours. Cass adjusted the feed on the laptop, eyes narrowing at the grainy footage. It had taken days to decrypt the drive labeled insurance, but it was worth it. On screen, Silas leaned over a table in a cheap hotel room, holding a woman by the jaw. You breathe a word, he hissed, and I'll make you wish you never came here. The woman, bruised, tear-streaked, nodded quickly. He handed her an envelope stuffed with cash. I make problems disappear? Don't forget that. Cass hit pause. Timestamp puts this 2 months before your supposed death. Nolan's jaw tightened. Same woman that called the Veterans Charity to file a complaint. They buried it. We leaked this. Cass asked. Not yet. It's our hammer. The public's already turning against him. But we need one final push before we shatter it all. He loaded the file into a hidden directory and encrypted it with a password only he and Cass knew. Then he opened his burner and sent a message to Rowan, final proof in hand. Get ready to drop it. Cass lit a cigarette, pacing. You think he'll come out of hiding? He'll have to, Nolan said. This isn't just about money anymore. This is survival. A ping hit Nolan's phone. Message from unknown. You made your move. Now it's my turn. Cass looked at him. That him? Oh yeah, Nolan said, ice cold. He's feeling the fire. And Nolan was about to pour gasoline on it. The bank manager's smile was forced, her hands twitching as she adjusted her blouse collar. She knew who Nolan was. Everyone did now. I was told to expect a visit, she said quietly, motioning to a private room in the back. This way. The office was cold and too sterile. Cass closed the door behind them, holding a folder thick with evidence. You approved 3 international wire transfers under the Patriot Build Foundation, Nolan said. All traced back to Silas Huxley. She nodded nervously. Yes, he presented credentials, ID verification, nonprofit status, all forged, Cass cut in. I didn't know that at the time. But you do now, Nolan said. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to log into your system, print every transaction Silas made over the last year, and sign a witness affidavit that he presented falsified documents. If I do that, she hesitated. I could lose my job. You could also lose your license and face federal charges if you don't. Cass dropped the final hammer. Silas' voice on audio, bragging. The bank girl doesn't ask questions. I slide her a bonus, she signs off blind. The manager froze. Nolan leaned in. We're not the ones coming for you. The government is. Help us, and maybe they don't hit you first. She nodded slowly, defeated. 2 hours later, Nolan left with a briefcase full of documentation and a signed statement. Silas had used the system, bribed it, been it. But now, that system was turning back on him. One form, one signature, one mistake at a time. And soon, the final collapse. The video dropped at 7:03 a.m. sharp. Rowan Cash released it across every major social channel, YouTube, Twitter, even a full-page story on her website titled The Face Behind the Patriot Fraud. Nolan watched it from the motel room, lights off, curtain half drawn. The footage cut between clips, Silas' fake foundation documents, Rhea's staged interviews, the bruised woman's silent nod, and the damning bank audio. Rowan narrated it with quiet fury. Stolen valor isn't just a phrase, she said. It's a weapon when placed in the wrong hands. The video trended in under an hour. By noon, Silas' face was on the news. An emergency notice flashed from the Attorney General's office. Warrant issued for Silas Huxley, fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and embezzlement. Nolan's burner buzzed nonstop. Cass sent a photo, local protests forming outside a Patriot Build office. Stitch texted, "You just became the face of justice, brother." Another ping. Unknown number. A simple message. You don't get to finish this. Silas was losing control. Good. Because panic made people stupid. And Nolan was counting on it. Silas didn't run. Not yet. He vanished. His credit card stopped. Phones went dark. Associates disconnected. The last ping on his burner had come from a gas station off Route 9, 2 towns over. Cass pulled the surveillance. He ditched the car, she said. What a burner, Cash. Switch clothes. Guy's military smart. Knows how to disappear. But he's sloppy now, Nolan replied. Running scared leaves a trail. They drove the back roads in silence, following scattered crumbs. A pawned watch, a cash withdrawal from a shady bar, a tip bartender who said Silas asked about secluded properties. Warehouse maybe? Cass asked. Backwoods lot. Nolan's mind raced. Merrick Supply. Where we found the phones. Too obvious. Exactly. He thinks we'll avoid it. They pulled off the main road just before midnight. No headlights. No noise. The old warehouse loomed in the dark. Broken windows, tin roof, open like a mouth. Cass parked down the hill. You sure about this? I'm sure he's there, Nolan said. And what if he's armed? Then we end it. He stepped out of the truck, one hand on the Glock beneath his coat. This wasn't just a sting. It was the final reckoning. The warehouse groaned with age, wind howling through shattered vents. Nolan moved silently between steel beams, steps careful, eyes scanning every shadow. A faint voice echoed. Never figured you'd be dumb enough to walk in alone. Silas. Nolan followed the sound until he saw him, leaning against a pillar, gun in one hand, flashlight in the other. Smiling. Didn't think you had it in you, brother, Silas said. You forged my death, Nolan replied. You stole my name. Silas stepped forward. And I made it worth something. He raised the gun. Too bad you came back to ruin it. A shot cracked. Nolan dove behind a support beam as the bullet ripped past his ear. He returned fire, twice, shattering a panel near Silas. Sparks flew. Metal screamed. You think exposing me changes anything? Silas yelled. I built an empire. With my blood. They circled, slowly. Nolan caught a glimpse of movement. Cass, flanking from the side. One more distraction. Nolan stepped out, gun raised. You wanted a war. Here I am. Silas fired again, missed. Cass came from behind and tackled him into the floor. The gun slid. Nolan reached it first. He aimed it at Silas' head, breathing hard. Do it, Silas hissed. You want to be a killer now? Nolan didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed the cuffs from his jacket, flipped Silas over, and locked his wrists. You don't get to die easy. Sirens echoed in the distance. Cass stood beside him, bruised but smiling. You won. Nolan stared down at Silas. No, we did. Outside, the flashing lights lit the trees. This war was finally over. But the fallout was just beginning. The courtroom smelled like pine-scented bleach and old paper, sterilized justice. Nolan sat behind the prosecution's table, suit ironed, jaw tight, hands folded on the table in front of him. The seal of the state of Montana hung above the judge like a warning. Silas entered in cuffs. No swagger this time. Just a gray jumpsuit, fresh bruises from holding, and a smirk that twitched only slightly when he saw Nolan. The judge called for order as the prosecution began. The assistant DA, a young woman with fire in her voice, opened strong. Silas Huxley used forged documents, stolen identity, and federal funds to build a nonprofit empire off the grave of a man who wasn't even dead. The jury didn't blink. They'd seen the footage. Read the files. The truth had already gone viral. But Nolan wasn't watching them. He was watching the second row, where Rhea sat in silence, hands clutched in her lap, face pale but composed. She didn't cry. She didn't look away. For the first time, she just sat in the wreckage and watched it burn. The first witness was the bank manager, then the therapist, then the woman Silas had threatened, all testifying with calm, clear truth. When Nolan took the stand, the room fell into a silence so sharp it felt sacred. He told the story of war, of coming home, of betrayal, of a man erased from his own life. When he stepped down, Silas didn't look up. He finally understood what it meant to lose control. That night, back at the motel, Nolan sat alone at the table. The trial would resume in the morning, But his mind wasn't on court. It was on the envelope Stitch had slipped him outside the courthouse. "Found this in your old mailbox," Stitch had said. From Harper. The envelope was light. Inside, a single folded piece of paper in messy handwriting. "Dear Dad, Mom says you're in heaven. I don't believe her. I think you're just busy. I drew this picture of us fishing like we used to. I remember when you said brave means doing the hard thing even when you're scared. I try to be brave every day. I hope you come home soon. Love, Harper." Nolan stared at the drawing. Two stick figures on a dock. A sun smiling in the sky. One figure wore a hat labeled Dad. His throat clenched. Not from rage. From grief. Everything he'd built, lost, fought to reclaim. It all pointed back to this small, innocent letter. He folded it slowly and tucked it into his jacket. Tomorrow, the world could do whatever it wanted. But tonight, he let himself feel what he hadn't in months: hope. Rio walked out of the courthouse and into a crowd of reporters. Cameras flashed like lightning. Mics pushed toward her like spears. "Do you have anything to say about the fraud? Did you know your husband was alive when you filed the death certificate? Are you cooperating with the investigation?" She didn't speak, didn't cry, just pulled her coat tighter around her and pushed through the wall of questions. But the shame followed her like a second skin. Her face was on every screen, her name in every article. The widow who lied. She tried to order coffee, the barista refused. She walked into a boutique, the clerk turned her away. The world didn't just want justice. It wanted retribution. By the time she reached her apartment, eggs had been thrown at the windows. Someone scrawled "Stolen Valor Bitch" in red spray paint on her garage door. Inside, she crumbled. Not because of the noise, but because she knew this wasn't temporary. This was her new reality. The empire she helped build on lies had collapsed, and she was buried in its rubble. Nolan stood at attention, dressed in full formal uniform for the first time since Afghanistan. His medals shone under the courthouse's harsh lights, but it was the silver plaque in his hands that carried real weight. Corporal Nolan Briggs, the military liaison, said, "We're officially correcting your status. You are no longer listed Kia. You are recognized with full honors, reinstated with back pay, and cleared of all false filings." A slow round of applause filled the room. Not staged, not forced. Real. Earned. Afterward, the liaison leaned in quietly. "There's more," he said. "Your story triggered an internal audit. Looks like this Patriot Build scam wasn't isolated. There's more like it. And now, because of you, they're being hunted down." Nolan nodded slowly. Justice wasn't just personal anymore. It was systemic. He stepped out onto the courthouse steps. Cameras waited. Reporters buzzed. But he didn't speak. He simply raised the plaque once, then walked down the stairs, silent and whole. The door to Ria's apartment opened slowly. She didn't look surprised to see Nolan standing there. She looked hollow. "You want to yell?" she asked. "Hit something? Go ahead. I won't stop you." He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. "No. I just want one thing." "What?" "The truth." Ria leaned against the counter. Her eyes were bloodshot, mascara faint like smudged shadows. "You think I haven't said it all already?" "No. You said what saved you. Now I want what cost me everything." She looked down at her hands. "Silas showed me the death report. I didn't want to believe it. But then the money started moving. He said it was already in motion. We just had to write it. You cashed in before the blood dried. I didn't touch a dollar at first. But then the accounts came, and I told myself it was reparations. That I earned it. For the years I spent scared, alone, I was still alive." "I know." Silence stretched. "I didn't come for revenge," Nolan said. "That's done." "Then why are you here?" "To tell you that I forgive you," he said. Her breath hitched. "But that doesn't mean I forget. And it sure as hell doesn't mean you're ever near my daughter again." He walked to the door. "Harper deserves better. So do I." And with that, he left her standing in the ruins of everything she helped build. The courthouse steps buzzed with tension. Silas was officially sentenced, 12 years without parole. But it wasn't over yet. Nolan and Kim stood inside a federal asset recovery office, papers signed, notarized, sealed. "Everything tied to the fraud gets seized," Kim said. "That includes your old house, the foundation's assets, and the vehicles bought under your name." Nolan nodded. burn it down to the screws. A week later, the house he built, the one Silas and Rhea filled with lies, went up for auction. Locals stood outside, watching as federal officers cleared out furniture, art, even Rhea's beloved grand piano. Social media exploded. The fake foundation crumbles. House of Lies goes on sale. Someone live-streamed the auction. The comment section roasted every item. Oh look, a couch built on betrayal. Bet the mattress still smells like secrets. Nolan didn't watch. He drove past once, slow, windows up. Saw the empty porch. The dead flower beds. A neighborhood that once waved when he walked by now stared at the wreckage. He didn't smile. Didn't mourn. He simply drove on. Let the past sell itself piece by piece. He was building something better. The community hall was packed wall to wall. Veterans, spouses, survivors. Faces Nolan had never seen, but somehow knew. Each one carrying the weight of loss, fraud, or betrayal. He stepped onto the stage with Cass and Rowan behind him. A projector played images on a screen. IRS reports, photos of Silas shell companies, documents now infamous. I wasn't the only one, Nolan began. I was just the one who didn't stay dead. Laughter. But it was tight. Real. These schemes are built on silence. On trusting that people like you won't speak up. That shame will win. He raised a folder. This is a new foundation. Legit. Verified. Transparent. No politician behind it. Just us. Veterans, victims, voices. The crowd erupted. He saw a man in the back crying. A woman clutching a photo. A kid holding a cardboard sign. "My dad's a hero." Afterward, Stitch hugged him hard. "You flipped the damn script, brother." Rowan stepped up. The story went global. DC is listening. Cass handed him a card. A retired senator wants to help. Says this could go nationwide. Nolan looked out at the crowd. Heart heavy, but finally steady. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was leading. The letter came in a plain white envelope, postmarked from the state penitentiary. No return name. Inside, a single page. Handwritten. Nolan didn't even need to read the first word. It was from Silas. "You didn't finish the job. You just let the world do it for you. Enjoy your stage, soldier. We both know peace won't last." Nolan folded the letter, dropped it in the fire pit out back. Watched it curl and blacken, ember by ember. Cass stepped outside, coffee in hand. "Something important?" "Just ashes," Nolan said. She sat beside him. "You think he'll ever get out?" "If he does, I'll still be standing." The fire popped, sparks dancing into the dark. "What now?" she asked. Nolan leaned back in the chair, stars above him and nothing behind him. "Now we rebuild. With truth. With Harper. With purpose. And if someone like him tries again?" He looked at her, steady. "Then we don't flinch. We fight." Peace wasn't what Nolan expected. It wasn't a parade. Or headlines. Or hugs from strangers. It was silence. Waking up to no alarms. No lawyers. No footsteps in the dark. Just the quiet hum of the fridge. The rustle of wind against the cabin walls. But the stillness didn't come easy. Some nights, he'd jolt awake thinking he was still back in Hellman. Other nights, it was the sound of Harper's voice echoing from that letter, and wondering if she still believed he was brave. He spent those nights walking the porch, one hand on the railing, the other gripping the edge of guilt. Cass visited often, brought groceries, fixed the busted heater, never said much. Sometimes that's all healing needs, someone who doesn't ask you to perform it. "You're doing better," she said one morning, handing him coffee. "I don't feel better," he admitted. "That's how it starts." He didn't argue. He just sat, sipping quietly, watching the fog lift from the trees. Peace, he realized, wasn't about forgetting what hurt. It was about learning how to live without letting it define you. The new apartment was modest. Clean lines, gray walls, and windows that let the sun in without judgment. Nolan set a photo on the shelf, the only one he kept. Harper, age 6, wearing his cap, her smile a beam of pure truth. No trophies. No medals. Just that. He unpacked slowly, methodically. A guitar in the corner. A bookshelf half full. A mattress on the floor, for now. This wasn't a place for hiding. It was a place for starting. A knock on the door broke the stillness. He opened it to see a delivery man holding a package. "Name?" the guy asked. Nolan Briggs. It still felt strange to say out loud, but it also felt right. Inside the box, a sealed document from the Department of Defense. Inside that, a certificate restoring his name, rank, and service record. Signed by 3 generals. No fanfare, just justice. He set it beside the photo, not above it, not in front of it. They belonged together. A reminder of what he lost, and what he'd never let be taken again. The park was quieter than Nolan remembered. Harper ran ahead, her laughter bouncing across the grass like wind chimes. She stopped at a swing set and looked back at him. "Dad, you coming?" He smiled, for real this time, and jogged over. They swung in silence for a while, the sky cloudless above them. "Do you still love Mom?" she asked suddenly. Nolan didn't flinch. "I don't hate her," he said. "But love, sometimes it ends. And that's okay." Harper kicked her feet, thoughtful. "You were gone a long time." "I know. Are you gonna leave again?" "Not unless the world ends," he said with a small grin. "And even then, I'll fight to come back." She leaned against his arm quietly. That was all she needed. And maybe all he needed too. He wasn't rebuilding the past. He was building Sundays again. The camera rolled. Lights were low. Rowan's voice soft, controlled. Tonight's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about survival. And the cost of silence. On screen, Nolan, sitting in a black chair. Clean-shaven. Eyes steady. He told it all. The war. The fake death. The betrayal. The comeback. No tears. No theatrics. Just truth. When the segment aired, the world listened. And then, it reacted. Veterans sent messages by the thousands. Whistleblowers came forward. Donations flooded into Nolan's new foundation. But he didn't celebrate. He just sat on the porch that night, phone in hand, watching the stars blink above the pines. Cash joined him. No words. Then Rowan's final words echoed from the screen inside the house. He lost everything, his name, his family, his peace. But he took it back, brick by brick. And now he builds something that can't be stolen. Nolan closed his eyes. He wasn't just alive. He was finally living. It was the last hearing. Civil court. No press. No cuffs. Just ink and paper. Nolan sat across from the judge, Kemp at his side. Rhea sat on the other bench, quiet. Her lawyer did the talking. Custody had already shifted. Joint, but with primary placement granted to Nolan. Today it was about the last signature. The judge cleared his throat. "Corporal Briggs, Ms. Reeves, you both agree to the following terms? Division of remaining assets, future contact boundaries, and full transfer of Harper's educational trust." Nolan nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." Rhea didn't look up. Just whispered, "Yes." The judge signed. Stamped. Done. As Nolan walked out of the courtroom, he paused by Rhea. She finally met his eyes. "I wish I could undo it," she said. "I don't," he replied quietly. "It made me who I needed to become." Then he turned and left, not with anger, but with peace. That was the real revenge. Not ruining her. Surviving her. 6 months later, the Briggs Foundation for Honor Recovery held its first public seminar. Veterans sat in rows. Survivors spoke. Lawyers volunteered their time. Cass handled security. Rowan covered the launch. Stitch gave the closing speech. Nolan stood off to the side, Harper at his hip, clutching a small notepad. "Can I say something?" she whispered. He smiled. "You sure?" She nodded. They walked up together. Harper took the mic shy at first. But steady. "My daddy came back from war, and from a lie. He helped stop bad people from hurting others. And now he helps heroes feel less alone." Silence. Then thunderous applause. Nolan knelt beside her, hugged her tight. That night, after the crowd left, he stood alone on stage, staring out at the empty chairs. Not emptiness. Possibility. This was never about revenge anymore. It was about rebuilding trust, one voice, one family, one soul at a time. A year later, Nolan sat on his porch again. The same old view. New home. New peace. Harper was inside, painting stars on her bedroom wall. Cass leaned in the doorway, sipping tea. "You gonna read it?" Nolan held the letter in his hand. No return address. But he recognized the writing. Silas. Inside, just a note. "You got your life back. I lost mine. But tell me, Nolan, What do you do when there's no one left to fight? He set the paper down and looked up at the stars Harper had painted earlier. Then he smiled. You live, he said aloud. You finally live. And now to you, yes, you still reading. Let me ask you one final question, straight from the story. What would you do if the world tried to erase you? Would you vanish? Or would you come back stronger? Drop your answer in the comments, and let me know where in the world you're watching from. If this story moved you, gave you chills, or made you feel anything real, then do one simple thing. Like, subscribe, and stick around, because we've got more epic thrillers and revenge sagas coming that'll keep you hooked till the last breath. Till then, take care of yourself, and never let anyone write your ending for you. See you in the next one.